spent all this time campaigning and social media and even raising money for good causes, and now you get it, and it's just as bad as Whedon's, or worse, or just mediocre. You're kind of stuck in a no man's land because they actually appeased your wants and your Zack Snyder Justice League needs. So there's nothing other than it was amazing left to do. So with that, good morning and welcome to another episode of LRM Mornings, brought to you by the Comic Source, because you know what? Sometimes we just like to hear our voices a little bit more.
That's right. I'm taking over.
And if you don't feel like listening to this particular podcast, go head on over to the Comic Source and listen to all of our picks for this week, which was myself, Manny, Jace, and Jay, which gave a rundown. We actually a good week for comics, and as always, that's a topic that we'd like to talk about.
Yeah, and also I'll say, we recently did our best of 2020 episode. We did cut it into 2 parts this year to make it easier because they always go so long. So yeah, go check that out too. If you're looking for good comics to read, some of the best books of 2020 are mentioned in that episode, and there's a lot to choose from. Something for everybody.
So speaking of comics and movies and all that, let's tie it all together. It was announced earlier today that Tim Burton's Batman and also we're gonna have Richard Donner's Superman are coming back in comic book form, digital comic book form, that is. And so with that, I know that for me personally, Tim Burton's Michael Keaton's Batman, that's my Batman, and as good as Christopher Nolan and what they did, and Ben Affleck tried and whatnot, Tim Burton's Michael Keaton, that's who Batman is to me whenever anyone brings him up. And similarly, I know you feel the same way about Superman.
Yeah, I mean, when I picture live action Superman in my head, I picture Christopher Reeve. I can't not. I guess I was 4 years old when that movie came out. So yeah, it made such an impression on me. It's probably why Superman's my favorite character, honestly. And so yeah, when I picture live action Superman in my head, that's who I see. And in my mind, it's never been equaled. Nobody has ever come close to portraying Superman on the big screen as well as Reeve. I think that, and I've said before, as much as I don't like Man of Steel or Batman vs Superman or Justice League, I think that Henry Cavill has the charisma and the screen presence to play Superman. He just hasn't been given good material to work with. But even if he was given good material, I don't know that he could rival, in my mind, what Christopher Reeve did. He just had the innocence and the charm that just embodied Superman for me. And on top of that, it's Robert Venditti writing it, who, he's of my same generation. We're of a similar age, and he kind of feels the same way. Christopher Reeve, the Richard Donner Christopher Reeve movie is who Superman is for him. So the fact that he's getting to write it, Superman's his favorite character, I'm so in. I'm so excited. I can't wait for Superman 78. Wilfredo Torres is doing the art, and I think he's a good choice in that he kind of has a timeless quality to his art, so it certainly will suit the time period. That being said, his art's not the most dynamic or the most detailed, so I don't know that he would have been my first choice, but I think it could work. The cool thing about the Batman '89 with bringing Tim Burton's vision back is it's going to be written by the guy who wrote the screenplay, the screenwriter for Batman '89. So you want to talk about him? Yeah, Sam Hamm. So when you want to talk about continuing the story that Tim Burton told. I mean, he's the best guy to do it, really, because he's the one that wrote the story in the first place for '89, and it's Joe Quinones on art. Who, Joe Quinones is an incredible artist. He can do many different styles, as we saw in the Dial H for Hero book that he
Yeah.
did with writer Sam Humphries. So yeah, I think they'll both knock it out of the park. That being said, obviously I'm much more excited about the Superman 78 just because I'm much more of a Superman fan. I'm not really a big Tim Burton fan, so I'm sure I'll check out the Batman '89, but I don't feel like I'm the target audience for that. That's much more of a Manny target there.
Oh, this.
Yeah, real excited for Superman 78, especially because from what we've been told, it's going to be in that same vein of the first Superman movie. Clark is trying to, get Lois to go out with him, and Metropolis is still kind of surprised by this Superman that's there in their midst and has these abilities, and I don't know. I just think it's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm very excited for the opportunity just because of the fact that I always found that Michael Keaton had that broody quality to him as Bruce Wayne, just really kind of dark and absent from being a playboy or anything. He was very much, I felt, Batman, and this is why you and I work so well together. I think because it's just like Batman isn't your thing. Batman '89 isn't your thing. I feel the same way about Superman 78. I was never necessarily able to get into it very much. I've seen the movies, of course, but it's just not for me. But give me Batman Returns, which is my favorite Batman film of all time, and then I'm super happy. Just some campy moments. You got the penguins with the little um with the rockets on their back and everything. I love it. I love it all. But I love Tim Burton's style. I love his films. It's Edward Scissorhands. Um, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is even another one I liked, and then his visions on some of other films. It's just fun. It's different. Beetlejuice, obviously, good fun stuff. As for
See,
this,
that's the problem. That's the problem I have with Michael Keaton, though. Like, even when he's on the screen, whenever he's on the screen as Bruce Wayne, all I can see is Beetlejuice. All I can see is Beetlejuice. I can't see Bruce Wayne. So I never thought he. He's not who I picture when I picture live action Bruce Wayne.
That's my pick. And then and what I love about this idea for this book is the fact that it's being written by Ham, and I'm so interested. Well, I'm very interested because they're going to be bringing back Selina Kyle, Catwoman. It's something that we saw at the end of Batman Returns. We saw her silhouette pop up when the bat signal went up, and it could have been a continued story, but of course we know that they went in a different direction with Joel Schumacher. After his stories were too dark, and they didn't, McDonald's and other sponsors didn't want to do.
It was a Batman Forever or Batman
Forever? Yeah, that was the next one.
Batman Forever was the third one.
Yeah, Batman Forever.
I'd actually be more interested. I would actually be more interested in getting a Batman Forever with Val Kilmer and Chris O'Donnell than I would. I would even rather get Batman and Robin with the terrible Batgirl of Alicia Silverstone and George Clooney. And it's not okay. Like, don't send us hate mail or tell everybody in the comments what an idiot I am. I'm not saying that Jim Carrey, Riddler, and Tommy Lee Jones, Two-Face, and God knows I don't like Uma Thurman, but Uma Thurman, Poison Ivy, and Arnold as Mr. Freeze. I'm not saying that movie 3 and 4 are better than Batman '89 and Batman Returns. The Tim Burton Batman films are superior to the Joel Schumacher, and I don't even know who directed the last one.
I was Joel Schumacher, both of them.
Both of them? Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, other than, do you know what killed the dinosaurs?
That was good, man.
The Ice Age. That's the only good part of those two movies. But it just has a different aesthetic that Story wise, yes, the first two movies are better, but I don't know, just for kind of fun. The thing about the Batman Forever and Batman and Robin is they didn't take themselves too seriously. You could go and see them and just kind of laugh and be like, oh look, fluorescent colors, and Bane being ridiculous and looking like he's made out of plastic, and you didn't. But the Tim Burton movies, I think you're supposed to take them seriously, and again, I'm not a Tim Burton fan, so all good though.
But like I was saying, the cool thing is that so the comic book's supposed to, like I said, return a Catwoman, debut Robin, which I will be curious to see if they model him after Marlon Wayans,
Yeah.
who had gotten who had gotten the part, and then also they're going to be focusing on Two Face, and that's somebody who we all know as Lando Calrissian,
Yep.
and
Billy
I
D.
forgot,
Williams. Yeah.
yeah, Billy D. Williams, and so are they going to style him to to his looks also to be in continuity with the movies, which I think they will, obviously. But I'm so curious as to the Robin aspect of it, and so I'm happy that they're going to be doing this, just because for me it did feel like uh, I got left hanging, because I think Tim Burton had one other movie, and they decided to go in a different direction, and because of that, Keaton also decided not to do it anymore, and so they got somebody who kind of looked like him in Val Kilmer, and so
Yeah,
it'll
he's not the best. He's pretty that's I mean, I like Val Kilmer. He's done some good movies, but he's pretty like that could have been anybody. He didn't bring anything. He didn't bring
no,
anything to that performance
no.
at all. It's very wooden. But let me ask you this. You're such a huge fan of these Batman movies to one degree or another. Who do you think the worst villain is? Like either like acting wise, or they didn't get him right, or just didn't like who's the least interesting? Like who do you think the worst villain of those first four Batman movies is?
So it's difficult because they all bring something kind of like, I believe it or not, I like Tommy Lee Jones is Harvey Dent, but that's nowhere near that serious tone gangster that I grew up with in Batman the Animated Series, and so I would say maybe Tommy Lee Jones, but same thing with Arnold, man. Like I it was it's the problem is that it's fun.
Yeah.
Arnold's Mr. Freeze is fun, but it's okay. You know what? Easy one. The guy and Bane is the absolute worst villain that they had.
Yeah, it's hard to argue that, but I also see. I mean, he didn't even really talk, and
Exactly.
he was just a prop. So I think for me, it's Tommy Lee Jones. Like I think that's one of his worst acting performances. And yeah, he's not Two Face, but I will say I'm not changing my answer, and I'm not making excuses. I think Tommy Lee Jones did a terrible job as Two Face. But when you're playing against Jim Carrey's Riddler, you don't have
Yeah.
any choice but to go like way over the top. Otherwise, everybody's gonna wait. Two Face was in that movie, so he didn't have a choice but to go completely over the top with Two Face. But it just didn't work. What they should have not had both those guys in the same movie. They should have either just gone with Two Face or just gone with Riddler.
Yeah. But you're gonna have to have the two, um, the two, it is what it is at this point, and for me, it has a soft spot because I have some of the McDonald's glasses still from
Yeah,
Batman Forever, and also still back then, Warner Brothers had partnerships with like Six Flags and stuff, and they used to have
yeah,
like the skiing shows and whatever at Magic Mountain and
yeah,
whatnot. So I remember all that. That was it was campy, but it's fun. My daughter, she loves Batman and Robin just because of how campy and how ridiculous Arnold is, and she enjoys it.
yeah. Batman Forever, man, it went that movie even almost more so than I guess Batman '89. The merchandising was pretty crazy, but man, Batman Forever. I mean, it
Yeah,
was it literally was everywhere, like T-shirts and yeah, glass, like it was everywhere. And as much as I normally don't go in for that kind of um, that kind of merchandise tie-in or whatever. When Batman '89 came out, I was still in high school, right? So, I didn't have my own money, and it was like whatever. But when Batman Forever came out, I lived on my own. I was in college. I had a job. I was making my own money, so I could. I remember buying the trading cards to put together a whole set, and I had a glow-in-the-dark T-shirt with the bat symbol that was also the question mark, and I even have a Batman, like the first comic book statue I ever bought. It was like $200, like a Batman statue of Val Kilmer.
Wow.
It's like a sideshow. It wasn't a sideshow. Can't remember what company it was, but yeah, like a Batman statue. Yeah, I kind of went a little Batman Forever crazy. I think I bought some of the. Did I buy? No, I think I drew the line at buying the figures. I don't think I bought any of the action figures.
There was a lot.
There was a lot. Yeah, there was a whole heck of a lot. So
let's move on to one of your favorite topics, which is Zack Snyder.
Oh yeah, definitely one of my favorite topics.
So we all know how well he did with Superman and the rest of the Justice League and DC. So word on the internet today is that yesterday, sorry, is that he's working on a faithful version of King Arthur. What do you think?
Okay, well, first of all, we know Zack Snyder can't be faithful to anything, any source material. Okay, that's number one. He's gonna Snyderize. Yes, I said Snyderize.
Yeah.
Whatever he does, right? That's number one. Number two, faithful to what? Like the myth of King Arthur has been interpreted and adapted and modernized and told in movies and cartoons and television shows and comics and novels. Like, it's been told and retold hundreds of times. So what exactly is he going to be faithful to? Like, knowing Snyder, he'll say, yes, I'm being faithful to it, and he'll go and he'll cherry pick from a bunch of different stories that have already been told, so he can Snyderize it as he wants. Now, the movie Excalibur, which was done in the early '80s, and I'm not a big movie guy. It's a very famous movie, and I couldn't even tell you who was involved, although I know some of the creators and producers and actors and stuff are very well known. And there's probably people screaming at the podcast going, how can you not know this? But I've seen it, and it is pretty dark, and it's artistic, and it's got a lot of really interesting visuals, and I could see Snyder just like trying to rip it off and Snyderizing it. Like, I remember seeing it as a kid, except for the parts with the nudity, where I think my dad, cover my eyes or make me leave the room or whatever. But I remember seeing it and being struck by how stark some of these images, like how impactful some of the images are. Like, I think there's a part where some guys like hung up on a tree or something like that, and I remember a crow coming and like eating on his eyeball or something. There's another scene where there's a bunch of dead bodies on this field, and the blood is just like flowing like a river. So I can see Snyder like wanting to do that. I can see him looking at Excalibur and going, oh, what an incredible piece of art. I want to make something like that. Can Snyder actually do it? I have zero faith that Snyder can make a good movie at this point if he's doing anything other than doing the cinematography. I think if he's got somebody there, a director who can rein him in and say, no, I don't want that. You're going too far. That won't work. And just concentrate on giving some impactful visuals, I think he could do that. But if he's going to write it or direct it, or he doesn't have anybody to keep him in check, I think it'll be a failure, because I don't think Zack Snyder is a good filmmaker, and that's just the bottom line.
So what are your thoughts on Watchmen then? Did you like that one, or just
I thought, again, I thought it was okay. They changed some things around. There were some visuals that they took directly from the comics, and those things worked. But I don't feel like it holds a candle to the work of art that the comic book is. And I'm not even one of those people that holds Watchmen up as like, oh, this is the greatest deconstruction of, comics and whatever, superheroes, and Alan Moore's a god, whatever. Watchmen's good in my mind. It's not maybe even great, but it's not the end all be all. And, I know if you look on the internet, it's at the top of all these different best graphic novels of all time. It's Watchmen, Watchmen, Watchmen.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I thought that Snyder did a good job of bringing some of those comic pages to life, but I just thought it was average. It wasn't like, oh my god, I want to go see everything this creator does, this director does. Honestly, I don't understand how the guy has this rabid following, because everything that I've seen that he's done has just been okay to terrible. Honestly, just, I mean, go watch Sucker Punch. You can't tell me that that's a good movie. It's got some cool scenes in it, but like as a movie, it's hard to watch. It's not good. And I'd say, the same thing about Man of Steel, but we're not getting into the Man of Steel here.
Yeah, you can get into a Man of Steel conversation with us if you meet us at a bar at a convention. I am sure to fire up that conversation. I'm going to tell you right now, the best King Arthur adaptation happened in 1975. Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
And to be fair, I was only introduced to that about a month ago by my girlfriend. I'd never seen it.
Oh, that's the Knights of Knee, and it's merely a flesh wound.
It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
I don't think Zack Snyder would be borrowing too many visuals from that one.
You probably should, especially from the Black Knight. He'll take that one. But the funny, the King Arthur films have been really difficult to do anyway. I mean, Guy Ritchie tried it in 2017 and failed miserably with King Arthur: Legend of the Sword. It didn't do very well at all.
Was that the one with
Charlie Hunnam?
Yeah. I was gonna say the guy from Sons of Anarchy. Yeah.
Sons of Anarchy. Yeah. And so, I mean, the one film I am looking forward to seeing from Snyder, I don't have to pay for also, is going to be Army of the Dead on Netflix, because zombie movies, you take them for what they are. They're not, it's just the genre of it. And I like what he did in his previous movies, like what is it, Dawn of the Dead?
That's the one movie. That is the exception that proves the rule. Yeah. Zack Snyder can make a good movie. Dawn of the Dead is far and away his best film, and it's not perfect, but it's far and away his best film. He should have stuck to doing those kind of movies, a little more smaller in scope. Mm-hmm. I think the problem is he can't get out of his own way. He tries to do too much.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it's because he wants the big picture. Yeah, so yeah. It is what it is. And another interesting thing that I saw pop up was in some of the merchandising that for Zack Snyder's Justice League, they have this new sticker kit that has kind of the logos of the different heroes that we're going to see, and included in there is they added Martian Manhunter's kind of his chest plate, or his X kind of, but they also added a Green Lantern symbol.
Well, we saw a Green Lantern in the theatrical release that we got.
They flew by kind of like a Tinkerbell.
So, and that's probably what we'll get. It's probably what we'll get here. It's not going to be like, oh, here's Hal Jordan or here's John Stewart. It's going to just, you may see a little more of what we, the Green Lantern that we saw, but
I'd hope we get a little bit more. I mean, just hell, he's already putting everybody else in this film.
Everybody's CGI. That's another problem I have with Snyder. Like, stop with the CGI, dude. Like, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And if anything, you look at the way Thanos looks. Thanos to me looks 1,000 times better because it's motion capture, and it works better than just having something completely created out of CGI. It does not look good, but you can't convince Zack Snyder of that. So
I know, but I mean, the beauty of it all, and I wrote this in a piece earlier this week, is that when it comes out, we're gonna be done with it. There's not gonna be a post every other week with a screenshot of something that he wanted to do, he couldn't do, a fan theory that he wasn't able to realize. That's it. We're done. We can finally put this to bed. and and I don't know if these Snyder Cut fans then jump over to David Ayer to try to get his Suicide Squad.
So this is the thing that I don't. Is it ever really going to go away? Because like the way to make it go away is if theaters were open and this was being re-released as a movie and nobody went to see it. If it totally flopped in movie theaters and ended up costing Warner Brothers, all this money and not making any of it back, and it would be a definitive statement, the whatever, the 20,000 fans that wanted the Snyder Cut go and see it, that's a drop in the bucket, and it would totally fail, and Zack Snyder would be poison. Nobody in Hollywood would want to touch him. How do you possibly, with the streaming service, how do you possibly gauge whether it's a success or not? Clearly, Warner Brothers couldn't care less what the critics say, because if they cared what the critics said, they wouldn't have never let him do this in the first place, because all his DC movies have been just obliterated by the critics. None of them have received good critical reviews. So my whole thing is like, I'm very curious to know, like, how are you going to judge whether this is a success or not?
Probably social media impressions and how many people get HBO Max for those couple of months.
That's a terrible way to do it, because here's why. People that know that Zack Snyder sucks, like me, I'm not going to bother to watch it. The people that are going to be vocal about it on social media are the people that watch it, that campaign for it, and whether they like it or not, because they begged for it and they got their way, they have no choice but to support it. They have no choice but to say, this is the greatest thing ever, because they don't want to look bad. They don't want to look like idiots, even though they are. They don't want to look like that. So they're going to say, hey, this is great. This is great. Social media, most of the people on social media are going to say it's great. And most of the people that don't are going to, they will be a much smaller number, and they're going to get shouted down as, oh, you're just a hater. You're just a troll.
Jace, you're a hater.
It's not that it's not a good movie. You just don't like Zack Snyder. Well, it's not a good movie, and I don't like Zack Snyder's. I don't know Zack Snyder personally, so I can't say I don't like Zack Snyder, but I'll say I don't like Zack Snyder's body of work, and I don't like him having anything to do with the DC EU. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they.
I think so. I think at that point it puts to bed. And like I guess also for me, I already have HBO Max. I enjoy a lot of their other programs.
So do I.
It's not gonna cost me any more. It's not gonna cost me any extra.
It's gonna cost you 4 hours of your time.
You know what? It's 4 hours. I'd probably be watching The Big Bang Theory, or Whose Line Is It Anyway?
See, that's your problem. Blackish, you need to be spending that time reading comics.
You know what the problem is that I need to make sure that I'm caught up on these shows, because it comes back to bite me later for interviews and such.
The Big Bang Theory and Whose Line Is It Anyway? You don't need to be caught up on those shows, man.
The Big Bang Theory and Whose Line are kind of background shows that I'll have on while I'm working, just for noise and things like that. So
what we should talk about? We should talk about the rumors that there's some big coalition of deep-pocketed DC fans who are going to buy DC Comics from Warner Brothers. Or I shouldn't say buy, I should say license. So if you're not familiar with what the rumor is, everybody, there's this rumor going around, started by a certain website that shall not be named, that has stated that sometime late last year, DC brought in this group of investors and gave them a tour of the offices in Burbank of DC Comics. And the rumor is that there's going to be a bunch of these investors that get together, and they're all going to invest about $25 million a piece, because it's going to cost somewhere between $300 to $500 million to basically license the DC characters from Warner Brothers. So basically what we're talking about is Warner Brothers still maintains the IP, like the intellectual property for movies and TV shows and toys and all the merchandise, pajamas and bed sheets and t-shirts and all that kind of stuff. But you have an independent group that that Warner Brothers will not interfere with that makes the comics. So they are in charge of the comics, and the comics become completely separate. So these guys will hire their own, editor in chief. They'll hire their own editorial staff. They'll make all the decisions, and the movies and TV. Maybe they can pull ideas from the comics if they want, but it'll be completely separate. So what's interesting is the whole reason that DC moved over to Burbank from their New York offices was because they wanted them to be closer to the rest of Warner Brothers.
Right.
So they could have a better synergy with the movies and the video games and the TV and all that kind of stuff. So you took these pretty insane amount expense of rent in New York City, and you brought them to Burbank and had an even crazier, more insane amount of rent. And that's really when people started saying at Warner Brothers, and then in turn AT&T started saying, well, these comics, they don't even make enough money to justify their existence, because they're not even enough to pay for this insane Hollywood rent that they cost. And that was, some people point at that as sort of the beginning of the end of when things started to go downhill for DC. So it's an interesting prospect to think about, of having these DC super fans, these super rich DC super fans come in and invest. But just to play devil's advocate for a second, like, if you're a DC super fan that has this money, why would you invest? Why wouldn't you go do your own thing where you own the IP, create your own comics or whatever? Maybe you can get the next Walking Dead and make a bunch of money. Because really what you're saying is, okay, Warner Brothers, we're going to pay you $300 to $500 million to license these characters indefinitely, in perpetuity. It's supposed to be for, so they have them forever. But if it's not making enough money for Warner Brothers, how's it going to make enough money for these people that spent $500 million? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't necessarily, and yes, DC Comics are profitable. It makes money, but does it make enough money to justify,
Mm-hmm.
what Warner Brothers could be using that space for? And, it could be they could make better use of the space, basically. So you license it out, you kick everybody out of your Burbank offices, let them go do their own thing. It's an interesting thing to think about. But yeah, I wonder if, well, why would they do? And one of the articles I saw mentioned Dinesh Shamdasani's name, because he's that level of high roller that could do something like this. But again, why would he want to when he's got his own bad idea where he owns everything, So it's going to be interesting to see if it really comes to pass. I kind of don't think it will, but like I said, it's interesting to think about. And it started a thing on social media where people are like, well, if you could get just your hands on just one character, and people are picking like these B-list characters because, well, I don't have $25 million, but maybe I can get the rights to I don't know, Condiment King for $100 or maybe I can get the Creeper for $500 or something like that.
You think I get Bug?
What's that?
You think I get the Bug from New
from
Earth?
Yeah. Forager.
Forager, thank you. That's
yeah. Somebody, yeah. Let me think of who would be like the cheapest character to get, because nobody would want to read about him. Captain Atom would probably be pretty cheap.
What do you think I get away with, like what's his name? Malone?
Matches Malone?
Matches Malone?
No, nobody Batman related would be cheap. But you know what? They haven't put out a Blue Devil comic in forever. So I would think he'd be pretty cheap. Could do something with Cassidy.
Yeah, that would be interesting if you could buy a single character. I mean, I couldn't buy Miracle anymore because Tom King decided to elevate him to a new level.
Yeah, Jimmy Palmiotti was saying, I wonder if they'd sell me and Amanda the rights to Power Girl.
Power Girl. What about get him GI Zombie?
Yeah, GI Zombie would be probably relatively cheap. Yeah, I'd be down for that.
Very good, very good. I really actually hope that something like that would come in fruition, just because of the fact that it would be out of the hands of AT&T and maybe in the hands of people who cared a little bit more about the book, so we don't have situations like we have now.
Yeah, I agree. It's a great thing to think about, but I do think it's a little bit of wishful thinking. And God, could it possibly? The other part of me is like, man, could it possibly get worse? You know,
It
and it goes
can.
back. It goes back to it goes back to all the people that wanted Dan Didio to be fired. Like, God, blamed everything on Dan. Get rid of him. Get rid of him. Get rid of him. And now those people are like, no, but we got what we wanted, and now we're sad because
Stuck with AT&T.
yeah,
Yeah.
careful what you wish for.
Yeah, it's right. Yeah, right now in comics, as far as you know, we're seeing if you're following the comic source, which you should be, you know that independence right now is where it's at.
Yep.
And even some Marvel titles are doing fairly well. Any last words?
No, I just say that I mean there are still good DC books out there, and there are still good DC creators out there. So it's not all bad. But yeah, just be sure you're listening to the comic source, because we'll tell you what's good and what's not, and save you a lot of pain. Don't buy anything Future State. I'll just put that out there.
Yeah, 100%. Listen to the reviews on Friday though. Future State Fridays, right? And find out why though. You know, we're not going to just tell you not to do something. There's going to be a reason behind it.
Yeah, I mean there are a couple of Future State titles that are worth your time. So
yeah, definitely. Make sure that you're visiting us at LRM Online for all of your podcasts, including the one we have been plugging away this entire episode, the Comic Source. We also have the one we are on now, LRM Mornings, Geek Scholars Movie News, Nerdflix and Chill, and a Breaking Geek. Along with that, you'll find a variety of interviews, reviews, trailers, and all the nerdy news that you can possibly need for your day. Jace, where can people find you?
yeah, just do a search for the Comic Source. We're on all podcast platforms. I'm most active on Twitter, so that's where you want to reach out to me. But I'm also on Instagram and Facebook, and all. Don't have a TikTok. I have no plans to have a TikTok. But yeah, just do a search for the Comic Source, and you'll find us.
And as for me, Manny, you can find me on Twitter at LRM_Emmanuel, or on Instagram at riddlemethis_510. All right, everybody. Hope everybody has a pleasant Thursday. Take care.
That's right. See you.